Part 8. The Spirit That Burns, Wise Woman of the River. An African folktale and women empowerment. Once, there was only silence. But from that silence rose a river. From that river came a keeper. And from that keeper, hope, pain, power. In the shadow of Part 7, we saw Zina confront not just the doubts of elders, but the whispers of destiny. We saw visions stir, the past unravel, the dead remember. But peace was a breath too shallow. And as fire returns to the land, so too does the truth begin to burn. The wise woman of the river is no longer here to guide them. But her story, her spirit, lives in Zina. And in one other, a forgotten flame. They thought the river had finished its song. That the fire had bowed in defeat. That the silence between breaths was peace. But they were wrong. For there is a spirit that does not rest. A spirit that burns, not to destroy, but to reveal. It is older than flame, more patient than water, and it has chosen this moment to rise. This is Temple Timeless Tales, and the river's truth is not yet done. The ashes speak. When dawn broke over Noma, the sky wore grey like a shroud. The village still bore the scent of smoke. But beneath the ash, something paused. A drumbeat without sound. A whisper without breath. Zina stood at the heart of the village. Not as a child of prophecy, but as a woman who had walked through fire and come out not cleansed, but transformed. It is one thing to hear the river. It is another to become it. The missing girl. That morning, Mola was gone. No footprints. No scream. Just her bead necklace in the sand. And with it, a trail of charred leaves, leading west. Toward the forbidden grove. The villagers panicked. Some accused spirits. Others feared Obaduma had struck again. But Zina, she listened. Not to the people, but to the wind. And the wind told her. She was taken by the spirit that burns. The sacred gathering. By twilight, the circle formed. Simi came with painted arms. Eo brought the old staff once held by Mama Ebele. Even Didi, once too afraid to speak, now stood with burning eyes. They were no longer just girls. They were the daughters of the river. Zina stood at their center, her hands cupped with river water and ash. From the joining of flame and flow, a new spirit was born. One not of war, but of reckoning. Night descended like a shadow with teeth, sharp, patient, and inevitable. The stars watched in silence. And the river held its breath. This was not just another evening. This was the kind of night that tasted like prophecy, salted with fear, stained with smoke. The village of Noma had known peace, yes. But peace is only a breath between storms. And now, that breath was about to break. Smoke on the wind. Red glow flickers in the distance. Children stop playing. Birds flee. A goat screams. A woman drops a calabash. At first, it was only a scent. Smoke, slithering across the wind like a forgotten prayer. But then came the drums. Slow, heavy, urgent. When the youngest child cried smoke, he did not cry out of fear. He cried because he remembered. Because the fire that left with Yole had returned. And this time, it was crawling on 2 feet. The vanished girl. Her name had once been Molo. Bright-eyed, curious, always asking about the river, the stars, and the names of spirits. But Mola was no longer a child of the village. She had vanished moons ago. Taken, it was said, by wind and whispers. Now, in the rising smoke, her presence returned. But not as a girl lost. As something becoming. Council confrontation. Inside the elder hut, Zina stands lit by firelight. The air feels thick. Zina stood before the elders, no longer a girl, not merely the water keeper. She stood as a storm refusing to wait at the door. Zina, voice steady, eyes burning.
What comes is not fire to quench. It is a spirit of memory, twisted, taut, and terribly old.
But the elders were still heavy with doubt. One of the elders murmured. Then called the river again, wash it away. Zina responded.
The river won't be enough this time. Not if the fire walks in our own skin.
The disciple of flame. Yole cloaked in shadow. Mola kneels before her. Firelight dances in her eyes. You see, Yole was never vanquished. She had fled, wounded, yes, but not broken. And in the silence of exile, she found her seed. Mola, a child once gentle, now sharpened by betrayal, was adopted by flame. Yole, whispering into Mola's ear.
They forgot your name. I will give you a new one. Daughter of Ember, child of return.
And with chants carved in bone and breath, Mola was remade. Not in hatred, in purpose. Zina's return to the river. Zina kneels at the river. Her reflection breaks into ripples. Ash drifts down like snow. Zina returned to the river. Her sanctuary. Her source. But this time, the water was still. Not in calm, but in fear. The river remembered Yole. It remembered Mola. And it trembled. Because even water knows when fire finds its voice. It does not scream. It sings. Yole's disciple, the lost girl, appears. Deep forest, shadows flickering. A girl moves with eyes like dying stars. They called her lost. But she was found by fire. A girl once lost to fire. A child whose name the winds forgot. Yole found her, not to save her, but to shape her. Now, the lost girl walks with flame beneath her skin. Adopted. Trained. Twisted. She is no longer a child, she is a disciple of destruction. Yole, voice dark and smooth.
You were born of water, but made for flame.
Zina warns the elders again. Inside a circular hut. Flickering oil lamps. tension thick as a woven mat. Zina stood before the elders just like her mother did, not as a girl, but as a storm refusing to wait at the door. Zina, voice calm, eyes fierce.
What's coming is not a fire to be quenched. It is a spirit, twisted, old, and full of memory.
Still, the elders clutched out like a cloak. Even Obaduma's silence cracked at the seams. Elders, murmuring,
Then call the river again. Wash it away.
Zina, it won't be enough this time. The river cannot fight alone.
Zina walks alone to the riverside. Her reflection breaks apart in the ripples. The river had always answered her, but now it felt hesitant, tired, as if even water feared what had returned. You see, every element remembers: stone, fire, sky, water. When forgotten, they wait until someone bleeds. Mama Ebele's vision. In a dream underwater space, Zina floats weightless. Mama Ebele's spirit appears luminous but fractured. Mama Ebele, voice like a river echoing through a canyon.
There is one more who burns without destroying. Find her, or watch everything drown in ash.
Even in death, the wise walk with the living, if the living know how to listen. Zina's doubt. Zina in her heart, untying her mother's pendant. Her water staff leans in the corner. Her eyes glisten with fear. Zina, inner monologue. What if I am not enough? What if this story ends with me forgotten? But destiny does not choose the strongest. It chooses the stubborn, the bold, the broken who dare to rise. Before we continue deeper into the fire and mystery, welcome to Temple Timeless Tales, where legends breathe and stories like the wise woman of the river awaken ancient truths. If this story has moved you, stirred you, held your breath captive, then I invite you. Subscribe to Temple Timeless Tales. Stay with us. Become part of this growing tribe of story lovers, seekers, and soul hearers. To our returning subscribers, thank you. You have walked with us from the river's edge to its darkest depths. And now, the journey deepens. Mola awakens the fire beast. Forest darkens. Smoke forms a beast, ribs of ember, breath of ash, faceless rage. Yole whispered the final chant. And Mola, now the ember disciple, raised her hands. From smoke, it came. The fire beast. Born not of hate, but of remembrance. Mola, voice cold. They buried the truth in rivers. Now let the fire speak it. The village prepares. Ritual markings. Women weeping and singing. Children draw spirals in mud. The staff of water glows faintly. This was no war of blades. This was a war of memory. Of voices once silenced, now screaming in smoke. Zina moved among them, blessing river stones, whispering the names of ancestors. And the village remembered. Not with fear, but with fire in their bones. final dawn. A red sunrise. Fog rolls. Zina walks into the water barefoot. Behind her, villagers hold hands. Zina, voice like a rising tide. If the fire must speak, then the river will answer. And if I fall, let it be into the arms of those who came before. And so the final breath was taken. The spirit that burns had awoken. And between ash and water stood one woman, willing to burn, so others could rise. The fire beast is born. Yole deep in the forest. Her chants rise. Smoke gathers. Flames flicker into form. A creature forms from burning leaves and bone and faceless, breathing rage. Yole was never defeated, only delayed. Her pain waited in the soil, in the embers. Now, her grief has found form, a fire beast. It breathes through ash, moves through rage, feeds on forgotten promises. Yole, grinning, they worship water, but even water boils. And beside her, Mola watches, her eyes reflecting flame. The forgotten ritual. In a deep river cave, Zina and village elders uncover sacred murals. The air hums with energy. There was one ritual older than memory. One even Mama Ebele dared not teach. Zina finds it carved in stone. The summoning of balance. Not water. Not fire. But the spirit between. But to awaken it, a sacrifice must be made. Village prepares. Zina leads villagers around the river. Rituals begin. Symbols are drawn. River stones are blessed. A child hums a tune no one taught her. This was not a battle for land or title. It was a battle for memory. For the soul of a people who had forgotten the cost of silence. Zina's awakening. Zina bathed in moonlight. She enters the river alone. Whispers echo. Water lifts her into the air briefly, she glows with river light. She was no longer just a girl, nor merely a keeper. She had become the memory of water, the voice of the in-between, dawn of the final day, sunrise over the village. A strange red tint in the clouds. Zina stands barefoot in the river's edge. The staff glows in her hand. Behind her, the villagers wait, not as followers, but as witnesses. Zina, voice low, unshaken.
If the fire comes, the river will rise. And if I fall, let it be into the arms of my ancestors.
Ash in the sky. Prayers in the wind. One woman. One flame. One choice. The river watches. The fire breathes. And everything waits for the first strike. The village gathered that night. Not to fear, but to remember. For the spirit that burns had not come to destroy, but to awaken. And as stars rose above Noma, Zina looked toward the west, to where Obaduma still skimmed, and where destiny stirred like thunder in the hills. The river has spoken. The fire has answered. But the storm has not yet come. In part 9, the sky will open. the earth will cry, and the story will flood.
Soft choral hums begin. Echoes of wisdom, stories untold, legends of old, in voices bold. Old timeless air, where magic unfolds, adventure awaits in every fold. Choral hums fade, join the journey, let the magic behold.